Okay, welcome everyone to a new episode of Myth Bust Monday. This week we're going to be looking at the idea that you should design your diet and your training program based on your body type, often referred to as your somatotype. But before we dig into all that, let's first have a quick look at where all of this actually came from. So in 1940, an American psychologist, William Sheldon, published a book called The Varieties of Human Physique, outlining his idea that individuals could be categorized according to three main somatotypes: the ectomorph, implying thinness; endomorph, implying fatness; and mesomorph, implying muscularity. Sheldon examined 4,000 photographs of students from the University of Chicago and classified them on a scale of 1 to 7 for each of the body types. Now, at the time, these measurements had nothing to do with diet or training. Instead, Sheldon wanted to find an association between each body type and personality, intelligence, and even so-called moral worth and future achievement. And his work has since been discredited by the scientific community at large. And I think it's worth mentioning that, in retrospect, it seems that many of his ideas were likely influenced by the growing pseudoscience of eugenics at the time. But anyway, somehow classifying body types according to Sheldon's somatotypes remains popular today, and it's very common in fitness circles to see people refer to themselves as an ectomorph if they struggle gaining weight or building muscle, and as an endomorph if they struggle losing fat or have more of a heavier set build. Now, some data out of Russia has showed that somatotyping can actually be useful for predicting athletic success in a specific sport. For example, they note that since basketball relies on jumping abilities, mesomorphic individuals might be better suited for basketball. But still, I can't help but call into question the practical application of this knowledge for us as people interested in building muscle or losing fat. It seems pretty obvious to me that athletes with different limb lengths and body measurements will be better suited for different sports, but that just doesn't seem relevant to how somatotypes are commonly used in fitness circles. Another issue I have with somatotyping is that it tends to put people in a box, implying that they can't change their body type over time, which simply isn't true. Just using pro-natural bodybuilder Alberto Nunez as an example, seeing him at his most bulked weight of 250 pounds, you'd probably think he's a pure endomorph. But looking at him on stage or close to stage time, you'd probably think he's more of a mesomorph or ectomorph, especially considering that he tends to diet on very high carbohydrate intakes. So tying all this together, I would say that I haven't found any convincing evidence that your classification into one of these three somatotypes should influence the way you train or diet. The best way to build muscle is through progressive overload, just adding more mechanical tension to the muscle over time. And this is true whether you're a pure endomorph or a pure ectomorph. And the best way to lose fat is to put yourself in a caloric deficit and eat sufficient protein. And this is also true regardless of your body type. But before I write this idea off as completely busted, I'd like to share a little bit of nuance based on some other research, less to do with somatotypes and more to do with genetics. Because clearly there are some people who can build muscle so much more easily than others, and by the same token, there's some people who can lose fat much more easily than others. And in fact, in one 2005 study, when 585 untrained subjects were put on the exact same arm training program for 12 weeks, the researchers found enormous variation in biceps muscle growth, where the worst responder actually lost about 5%, and the best responder gained about 55% of muscle cross-sectional area in the biceps. And by the same token, there are clearly some people who have a much easier time getting lean and staying lean than others. This most likely has to do with how hunger is regulated in the brain, and this is due to genetic differences in hormones like leptin. And while resting metabolic rate differences between individuals of the same body weight are not nearly as different as we once thought, there are huge individual differences in levels of NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so stuff like fidgeting, tapping your feet, or bobbing your head to music. And in fact, one study from Levine and colleagues showed that when subjects were overfed by 1,000 calories per day for 8 weeks, changes in fat gained ranged from 0.3 kilograms, so about 0.8 pounds, to 4.2 kilograms, or just about 9 pounds. And changes in NEAT ranged from negative 98 calories per day, so subjects actually moved around less, to positive 692 calories per day, meaning some of the subjects nearly entirely offset the 1,000 extra calories consumed by simply subconsciously moving around more during the day. So I think that these differences, in combination with genetic differences in bone structure, can in large part explain why some people look like endomorphs and some people look more like meso or ectomorphs. And because of these largely genetically determined factors, some people may do better on higher volume training routines, and some people may do better with higher reps or lower reps. And similarly, some folks will just have to diet on lower calories than others, and some people may do better on lower carb diets than others for similar reasons. But still, I think classifying people into one of three somatotypes generally isn't useful, since first, it implies that body types can't change over time, which is false. And secondly, these classifications don't tell us how we should train or how we should eat. And as of now, while high-quality genetic testing is still in its infancy, I think the best way to design your training program is by borrowing from exercise science and doing your own self-experimentation. And the same thing goes for diet. Just how many calories you need to eat and what macronutrient ratio will be best for your body is something that you have to figure out over time. So to wrap this one up, I would say that the idea that you should train and diet according to your body type is busted. Somatotyping has a history rich in pseudoscience, and while body measurements certainly can be useful for tracking progress and establishing a starting place, your specific somatotype isn't going to provide much useful information when it comes to designing an actual plan to get you there. So that's it for this one, guys. Before we go, I want to give a huge thank you to Hims for sponsoring this Myth Bust Monday video. Hims is a science-based brand offering men medical-grade solutions for hair loss, ED, and most recently, skincare. And Hims is great for this stuff because you can get quality medical-grade recommendations from actual licensed doctors and have both prescription and non-prescription products sent right to your door without having to leave your house. So Hims is offering you guys a virtual visit with a licensed doctor and a month trial of the complete hair kit for just $5. So if you go to forhims.com/Nippard or click the first link in the description box below, you can get started with your first complete hair kit today. And for the record, all interactions are kept confidential, so your information is always kept private. So thanks again to Hims for sponsoring the video. I really appreciate it. And make sure you guys check out that link in the description if you are interested. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave me a like if you enjoyed the video or if you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys all here next Monday.